audience, listen up. Burke will tell you guys when to start.
Go ahead.
I feel like one of the things that I found very interesting as we were talking about the questions is how to relate it to anything going on in current day and our perception of African Americans now. And from like personal experience, like I don't consider myself like a racist person at all. But like you see, like physically, obviously, like they have a darker skin color, and then you see like how their culture is different, and then like I feel like even though there's no like racism that they had in the South, no slavery, nothing like that, like somewhere in your mind you still have that idea of like difference between white people and black people.
When I got in trouble recently, I had to do community service, and the guy who like runs a community service, his name is Mr. J.
Mm-hmm.
And his name's Keith. He's a black man, and he was talking to us about the exact same thing. Like in black, like he was saying how it's more common in black culture, like society, that like the males have lower expectations already.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, cause some kid asked him, like, how come more black people get in trouble?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, that's not necessarily true, but like black males have a tendency to have less expectations when they're growing up.
Yeah.
I think
it gives them like no motivation.
Yeah, I mean, there's an internalized like racism present in people in this country, and it's been kind of drilled into us by the society that kind of, not overtly, but does kind of tell us that, you know, they are separate, and they are separate now, right now, like the different cultures, and partly it's race, and I think what's race is like what leads it to stem into the different socioeconomic conditions. Like there is race that leads to the different financial variations, which further separates the two groups.
Yeah.
Or the multiple groups.
I also I wanted to see how it would feel like, because I was trying to understand like kind of like the basis of like racism and why everyone thought like we should make each other separate. And so like what I did is I imagined myself like in a stadium, and I would be like the only white person there, and then I went like back and forth, like I was a white person and I was a black person, and so like, and then everyone else is black, and so I thought like, oh, I would feel really intimidated, like I would feel like scared of black people because I would be the only one there, even though they're people, like they're no different from myself except for their skin color. Like I would still feel scared because I'm white and they're black, and it's just like the number of them. Like if there was like a couple other white people, I would probably feel a lot more comfortable. And even though they're still people and they're still have like the same emotions, same like they're humans, except I would have that mentality that they're way different, and they would scare me to be if I was the only white person and they were all black.
And do you think the same could apply as like there was a stadium filled with white people and there was only an African American person, you know, like or a small group of?
Yeah.
So I mean, it can work both ways in how people perceive, you know, like what makes you feel comfortable, you know, stepping outside your comfort zone, you know, because I really don't see people like any white kids who really hang out in the same group as the Marin City kids, because I feel like in a sense they feel like they're not really like not like I guess like not welcomed, you know, because they are in their own comfortability zone of they've grown up with these people, they went to MLK with these same kids, and so you feel like you're intruding on them, and kind of like what Mr. Stein was saying, like
Can
I
put it out there that not all of the kids who come from Marin City are black, and you do tend to notice those ones and separate out because of the white kids that come from Marin City do tend to integrate themselves with the white kids from Mill Valley. So it's not just a Marin City thing; it is a race thing.
Yeah, I mean,
but like, and I like ask myself sometimes, like, if they find it such a problem, how come? I feel like sometimes they could do, like, black people, if they could do a better job with like integrating in white society.
Yeah.
For one example, like when in the book when like remember when Mark or Johannes loses the competition with the tennis and they kick him out of the Black Tennis Association?
Yeah.
like I don't like why would like and like gangs nowadays? How come like there's all this violence going on, like hatred within that communities when they're trying to like do a better job integrating with white society?
Why
Like
is
how
it-
come?
Why is it their responsibility to integrate themselves into white
Well, it
society?
would help a little if they weren't so like.
So now it's all on them that they haven't integrated themselves
No,
into
but
our
I'm saying
society.
they do a
That
better
and
job
so it's
doing it.
I don't think anyone's putting blame as to like they don't talk to white people, so screw them. So I don't think that's what we're saying at all here. I think we're just saying both for the people, the African Americans, if that makes you feel better, and the white Caucasian people, they are in this. I think my last thing that I was trying to say was, Mr. Seinar brought up the idea of, that black friend that I have, or just, to make yourself look cooler or whatever perception you want, you'll associate yourself with, a group of black kids and, you'll, in your mind, you'll think that you're like friends with them, but really that might be a perception of, kind of degrading them. So I think that's kind of why there's a little bit of more separateness, because the African American peoples people might feel like, I don't want to be known as, that black friend,
I think it's a really interesting issue because, like, we all have this preconceived notion, or deep down, that's like, that we think that there's a stereotype to any person we see, and none of us is, like, willing to admit we're racist, but we do have that idea and stereotype of anyone we see, and so, what Gabe was saying, like, I mean, maybe a reason why there, I guess, are more African American kids who get in trouble. It's not because, like, white kids, like, get in less trouble. It's just because they accuse them more. Because there's that deep down stereotype that they do more bad than white kids do.
Well, and also like, I just feel like they have more. Like they don't really care. I feel like since they don't have as much pressure on them and like the expectation isn't as high, I feel like sometimes they feel like they don't need to impress anyone. So like, if they don't need to impress anyone, why does it matter really like how much trouble they get into?
That kind of relates to the Steve Biko's like black
Have, like, a bigger
consciousness.
What?
It kind of relates to Steve Biko's black consciousness. Like maybe these kids are like oppressing themselves,
Well,
and
Yeah, I agree with that. Like they're actually like oppressing, because I think African American people, they've always kind of, I mean, like we're in city, it's kind of lower,
economic status.
yeah, and I guess they don't think they'll be able to get out of that, and they just kind of, they put it upon themselves, I guess, because they could do just as what we could do as being, white, and I just think what you're saying, like, they kind of do put it upon themselves, and Steve Biko, if they had that, like, around our time, I think that would definitely help high schoolers thinking that they can't really do anything with themselves.
they're kind of oppressing themselves with the self-fulfilled prophecy. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Hayden, would you like to say something? I think you're gonna explain.
well, also, like the ways in which these stereotypes are reinforced, like amongst like the new generation. It's like in middle school when we're all like sharing all these racist jokes, and like those like enforce the racial stereotypes, and those make people feel different from like, and they like there's like racist jokes that make people feel like, oh, they can't like support a family or something, or they aren't being
What?
What racist jokes are you talking about?
like racist jokes.
Oh, the Benny joke.
Like, then those are like
The
implanted
what?
into the minds of like the younger generation, and those kind of like add on to the stereotypes, and those add on to like the idea that black people or any other race from like white and sometimes white are different from you, and like it segregates it even more, even in like today's society. So I think that like still prevents other races from being able to have like, equal opportunity, like because it's just like that create that notion that like they're different
Yeah.
still,
I
and they're
think-
not gonna be able to fulfill expectations.
And I feel like now in like the 21st century and, you know, towards the end of the 20th century, the United States, I'll just focus on the United States, has become incredibly like judgmental as a whole. And you can compare that to anything, you know, as teenagers, you know, people look at TAM, that's the hood high school, like, great, cool, like, Marin City, what a hood, you know. So it's like, just how people look at it, like, they have, you know, more black kids attending their school than other of the Marin high schools, so we have, you know, there's, like, more reason to be, you know, scared at TAM, you know. And I've been in my sophomore year, and I have had absolutely no fear here, you know. And then with politics, how you compare the presidents, everything now is so, you know, specifically critiqued and looked at, and, you know, everything here and there. So the moment, you know, you come to TAM, or any high school for that matter, you're going to look at the student body and you're going to begin to critique it, you know. What's wrong with this group of people? What's right with this group of people? Why do they act this way, you know? How are they perceived, you know? When really you should just sit back and you should just let how they act and, you know, be the perception. You know, you don't have to create these images of people in your mind without even really knowing them. And I think that's part of the problem. That we see these black people, you know, we see them and we're like, oh, you know, and you hear about Marin City, how, you know, there's been murders sometimes, and we feel like they're dangerous. We don't really even know them. We don't know their background or
But I'm
anything.
like curious why you were saying that you'd be scared if you were the only white person, like, in a stadium with black people.
Well, it would make me uncomfortable because it's a huge stadium full of black people, and I'd be the only white person. And it feels like I don't know why, but I have this mentality like I would be a little like intimidated, because even though they're people,
But if they're just human,
they're no different from myself, and I feel like that's maybe the basis for racism, is that like there's that separation, like mentally, like they're different from you, and they're like not, then they're automatically feel like they're maybe going to be hostile or something.
It's a pretty honest sentiment, actually. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's rational, right? It doesn't mean that he believes logically that he is in danger, but anytime you're in a group of people where you're conscious of your difference from everybody in the room or everybody in the stadium, that's a fairly common human response.
It's not
Just
like,
to clarify, it does not make Bosco any more racist than anybody else at that table.
I mean, and
Right.
everyone would be thinking that.
Yeah.
No matter what kind of white you are, if you're in the stadium with a bunch of black people, everyone's going to be thinking that.
and it's not like I want to feel this way. It's not like
No one likes being the only one of one
proud of
kind.
this. When you're in a stadium with all
I
Asian
mean,
people,
but it's not like they're
I hate that.
scared
I'd
to be like,
I hate that. I just feel weird.
What's
I feel nervous.
You're scared to get murked.
What?
You
Maybe that's what I
really
said.
conscious of your differences.
Exactly.
It's not about being scared of them as a people, but you would notice it. It wouldn't, you know, it would be one of the first things you would think is, oh, I...
It would make you feel weird, not
It'd
necessarily
be
scared.
It's an uncomfortable thing, not necessarily
And I
a
also,
fear thing. And if it's fear, it stems from that.
I think it also like goes on like their appearance.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. You'll see if you saw someone walking down the street who was like from the ghetto, and you saw like a high class working like businessman who was African American come out of like a building like the city, like you would have different like thoughts.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
It's just the basis of their culture, you know. Like in the stadium full of people, you know. First, I mean, some of the people it might say the N-word, you know, like they say to each other because it's part of their culture. You can't say that because it's not culturally correct for you to say that.
And also, my community service guy, he made another example like that. Like, here's a perfect example. And people are always like, well, like, because I've heard sometimes, like, if black people don't want people to use the N-word, why do they still use it? And, you know, like, if you, like, everyone in this room has said stuff about their mom, or, like, thought stuff, like, or about their parents, like, when they get mad or something. Like, you know, like, if you, like, said something mean to your parents, if you heard someone else say that about your family, you would get mad.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
if
like the
somebody was
same
like,
thing.
like, oh my god, my mom's so stupid, and then, like, Georgie said, like,
Your mom's stupid.
Yeah, your
It's
mama
different.
is stupid.
It's different. You
Yeah.
can't say that.
You can say,
it's
like,
the
my
same
mom's
thing.
annoying, but
Exactly. That's a good way to compare it.
I think one thing, like, Mark's trying to do is just, like, break stereotypical, like, barriers. Like, he had a goal of kind of being, like, the first black man to win Wimbledon, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, his dream. And I think that would have shattered a bunch of,
Achoo!
like, preconceived notions about blacks and success in that time. So it's kind of like Obama, and like he like worked for his success, and like Mark wants to work for his, and so he just wants to kind of one step he can do to like help his like fellow South Africans out, like just abolish stereotypes.
Yeah, and so like the other group said that maybe they wouldn't want Mark to join, like they would like look bad, like Vico wouldn't want Mark to go to the tournament because it'd be kind of selfish. But like, imagine what the white people would think if he just like did not go to the tournament. They think he was like a coward and be like be fulfilling stereotypes and stuff like in their minds. And they think that he's like afraid to go up against a white person, and so it would just strengthen those stereotypes.
And one question I have is, do you think like all of the riots and the people, made movements that the South Africans were doing had any part towards the end of apartheid, or it was purely like the economic failure that they were in? Because, you could think that, yeah, they had a part in it, or you could think that maybe it was just like time that apartheid ended, maybe that fake conversation people were having earlier that, no matter what pressure they were under by their own people, at the end of the day it was like their own lack of economic that drove it to the end of apartheid. So basically, like, was there technically, Johannes, anything that he can do to help, or, was it already predetermined how apartheid would end,
Well, like, it's like in the past, or like people, like individual people have made big differences.
Yeah.
And stuff like Jackie Robinson, perfect example.
Martin Luther King.
Yeah. You had something to say.
I would say I don't think that if the the African American or the African population there would have been docile and accepted it, that anything would have changed, because it was those movements and stuff that brought South Africa to international attention, which then caused international communities to put pressure on South Africa, which led to that economic difficulties times, which then led to the end of apartheid. So I definitely think that if everything had seemed fine with apartheid, that anything would have changed.
Yeah.
Just like it took a big movement in the United States of the African American people here to get that change.
Yeah. One thing I thought was also interesting. Okay. One thing I also thought that was interesting is if everyone in South Africa, all the blacks, were so against apartheid and they hated it and they didn't do anything about it and started fighting each other, like the gangs, like when one of Mark's gang members came back and was like, why aren't you fighting, we're gonna have another gang fight. If they hate apartheid so much and they're so disgusted with the white oppression, then why are they fighting each other instead of fighting the oppressors?
Well, maybe they're kind of feeling stuck. Maybe this is the way it's been for so long that they feel like this is what they need to fulfill, and this is what the role that they need to fulfill, and they don't think that they can make a difference and they can change the status quo.
I don't see how any I feel like all their problems that you're saying is up to them to change.
And
you know what I'm saying?
And when we saw in the movies, I guess the different white characters in the movies who stood up for apartheid and then their lives kind of changed. That's hard to do. To be in a situation as the white person in apartheid, to have this comfortable life with black people working for you and having a great job, great family. It's hard to risk all of that for a cause that, whether it changed or not, really doesn't affect you personally.
Exactly.
So you have to be pretty determined that that's a horrible thing for you to be like,